I want you to imagine that you are in a room and there are 10 identical doors in front of you. In order to exit this room, you need to pick one of these doors. But you're sitting there staring at them and they all look the same. There's not even numbers on them. You just know that there's 10 of them. What do you do? It probably seems pretty obvious that you should start to open some of the doors. But unfortunately, what happens, certainly in my life, and I think happens with a lot of us, is that we sit and we plan. You might think, well, before I go and just open one of these doors, I really want to figure out which one is the right one to open. Maybe it's the one over there all the way on the left. Maybe it's the one all the way over there on the right. Maybe it's the middle one. Maybe I need to work my way down starting left to right. Maybe I should work my way up starting right to left. And, what if I go odds or evens, and you spend a lot of time figuring out what you're going to do, but you know that you need to open one of these doors in order to leave this room, and you know that potentially some of these doors are going to be dead ends, some of them are going to be exits, maybe they're all, you don't know what's behind the doors, you just know that you need to open them in order to leave this room. So, like I said, this might seem like a very obvious analogy, but what if we related it to starting a podcast? Let's imagine, like I wanted to years ago, that you wanted to start a podcast. You might think about what you're going to talk about. You might think about the guests you might bring on, or if you're even going to bring on guests, and maybe it's just you talking, maybe it's you and a friend talking. You might think about the length that you're going to record every single week. You might think about what day of the week you're going to publish. You might follow other podcasts in this space and listen to them every single week and take notes. You might research name ideas. You might think about what the artwork is going to be. You might think about the description. You might think about the social media account that you're going to run to promote it. You might spend a lot of time reading books on the topic that you're going to talk about. You might tell some friends and family that you're launching a podcast or you're thinking about launching a podcast. What are you doing, right? You're planning. You're basically sitting in that room thinking about which door you're going to open. I spent over 10 years in my career as a product manager working in startups and in technology and in software. And the number one lesson that I teach new PMs or engineers or students who want to go into product management is ship. Ship early, ship often. You will learn so much about your product and you will learn all of the answers to your questions by getting it out the door. I've seen so many people in my life basically stuck in this planning phase because it's comfortable. It's comfortable to sit there and think about all the different doors that you could open and all the different avenues that are going to, be laid out ahead of you. And it's uncomfortable to actually pick one and walk through it and figure things out. It's scary. What if you quote unquote pick the wrong door? Honestly, I'm not a big believer in the wrong decision when it comes to things like launching a podcast, right? I think the risk is pretty low in terms of your time and your effort, but we hold ourselves to a standard where we basically view it as a right decision, wrong decision, and we put so much pressure on ourselves as a result because we're trying to make sure that we, launch correctly and do it the right way. And it's got to be perfect. And we tell ourselves all of these different things. And that's just not true. This podcast started as the show called Super Awesome You. And when it really started was actually, I was visiting my parents. I was in their house. I was again thinking about this podcast. I had been talking about it. I even mentioned it to my business partner, Matt, that I had been noodling on this for a while. He was encouraging, and I still hadn't made any forward progress on it. And I just, my parents were napping, sitting downstairs, and I was like, you know what? I'm tired of thinking about this. I'm just going to go and record an episode. So I went into a quiet space. I hit record on my phone. I talked into it for 10 or 15 minutes. And then before I could even think about what I had done, I sent it to my friends. I sent it to Matt. I sent it to Jen, our other business partner, and just said, here's the first episode of a show I might launch, kind of here's the pilot, taking comments, feedback, whatever you got. And I basically had opened one of the doors. I went from sitting there in that room thinking about which is the best, door to open, and I opened one of them. And now immediately I've gotten feedback, right? I have gone from 10 doors that all could lead me somewhere to now there's 9 remaining doors because I kind of looked into this door, to use this analogy and really stretch it thin, saw what was in it, and I was like, cool. Now I've learned something about that one, but I've got these 9 other doors that I can start to open. And they get easier and easier to open. You start to make more and more progress. I had removed this barrier that I had put in front of me of trying to figure out which is the right one to do, and I've just opened one of them because when you don't know how to start, I always tell people, then just start. Like, you just pick something, move forward. Action is always going to give you immediate feedback and knowledge, and it's going to remove all of those unknowns in your brain that your brain is very busily trying to figure out, and it's going to give you immediate knowledge. It goes from this theoretical thing to this real thing because now you have made forward progress, you've gained some understanding, you've gained knowledge, and the next set of decisions becomes even easier. So I went from this theoretical podcast to now opening that first door, and it became something a little bit more real because I had recorded my voice, I'd shared it with some friends, I'd gotten their feedback, and now it was like, okay, that wasn't so bad. So the next step was recording the actual first episode. That wasn't so bad because I'd already done a pilot and I knew what changes I wanted to make and what edits. And then the next step was figuring out the name. I had already kind of decided that at the time, was Super Awesome You, and then writing the description, and the ball just got moving, right? All of those decisions that I had been kind of too afraid to make and had too many unknowns all started to be much easier to make because I had removed that initial barrier of, is this the right decision? Is this the wrong decision? The right decision is to make progress, whatever that looks like for you. That is honestly the best advice I can give you. It is to just make a small decision because then the next one is going to get a little bit easier and a little bit easier. And that snowball will just build and build and build. So, what is it for you? What room are you in with the 10 identical doors that you haven't opened yet? I have an exercise that I find very helpful when I feel like I am lacking forward momentum in something. And I will take out a blank sheet of paper. I'll draw a line down the center of this paper. On the left-hand side, I will title it Where I Am Today. On the right-hand side, I will title it Where I Want to Be. And on the left-hand side, I will write out all the things that are kind of just bouncing around in my brain. So to use this podcast example, it might be the name, who's going to host it, what's the artwork going to look like, what am I thinking about, and just kind of like write out, where I'm at. But objectively where I'm at, I might summarize it is I'm still thinking about launching a podcast. On the right-hand side, I write out where I want to be. So I might write, I've launched the podcast. It's in this directory. It's being listened to by my friends and family. It is being shared on my social media accounts. I've created a social media account to promote it. And I write all the things that I want this to be, maybe 30 days out, maybe a year out, maybe 10 years out. Put some kind of a North Star, though, on that right hand side. And then I usually draw an actual arrow between the two sides. It's just a big, bulky arrow to signify that I'm trying to move from the left hand side to the right hand side. And then I just pick one of these things. And I'm like, what is one thing that I can do to get me a little bit closer, so where the right-hand side becomes my reality and the left-hand side is my past? And so I might think, oh, well, I'll pick a podcast host, right? Like, let me just go and do some quick research. And I might just Google best podcast host. And I host on Buzzsprout. We host all of our Super Awesome Mix episodes here. And I'm like, it makes sense. I'm just going to go with Buzzsprout. Like, they seem like they are, they're one of the largest hosts. They're great. They've got a lot of features, easy to use, and not all that expensive. So I pick it. And the reality is, like, I could have changed, like, I think what's so magical, especially when you work in the digital economy and digital world, is it's pretty easy to switch things. So you really don't need to be worried about making an incorrect decision, because the decisions that you do make will inform whether or not you are comfortable with them. So that's really that next step, is after you've kind of written out the left hand, right hand side and where you want to be, you pick a small decision, you make it, check in with yourself. Like, after a couple of days, does this feel right? What did you learn? Do you like using the host that you picked? Is there something that you wish it could do? And now you've got a little bit better idea of, oh, I really wanted actually this feature and they don't seem to offer this feature, but maybe someone else will. And so now you are specifically searching for something a little bit more aligned with what you want. And you never would have known that had you not made that first decision, right? You never would have gotten to that door without first opening this other door and learning that feedback. Ultimately, movement gives you that confidence. It starts to give you that education and that knowledge, which then starts to build momentum, which then starts to make you feel even more confident. And you start to build that feedback loop, right? That's what the forward theory is all about. You get a little bit more confident, you become a little bit more of an expert, you start to understand things a little bit more. You're like, oh, this, I don't know what I was fretting about. Like, this all makes so much more sense in my head now. I am figuring things out. I'm moving forward. I feel good about this. And you start to celebrate the progress that you're making and you're checking in with yourself along the way. And then ultimately, you hit publish and you put it out in the world. And now it's really exciting because now not only are you learning and progressing and growing as an individual because you've opened all these doors for yourself, but now you're getting outside feedback. And people potentially are seeing your work and listening to your work and interacting with your work. And that is so exhilarating. I launched my first app like 15 years ago at this point. I don't remember when, but it was a time tracking app. And to have it go from something that I used myself to it being used around the world was unbelievable. I mean, what a fun, cool feeling, right? Here I was, this little developer. I'm still living in Texas at the time, and I saw that my app was being downloaded in Japan and in Europe and in South America and in, across the continents of the world. And I thought, like, how cool is that? I am living here in this home and I've created something that some other human on the other side of the world has downloaded and used. It didn't even matter at that point, if they deleted the app, it didn't work for them, they didn't like it, or if they loved it. Like, it didn't matter. What mattered was that I had done something that is now being consumed somewhere else in the world. And what a thrill that is. Like, that is a really cool feeling. So, my encouragement for you is don't let yourself sit in that room forever. Don't be afraid of making the wrong decision. Make the decision so small that it almost feels like it's impossible to make the wrong decision because they're small steps, but they are steps and they will get you closer to where you want to go. You will gain the confidence as you go along. You will gain the knowledge about whether or not they were quote unquote the right choice or the wrong choice. And, you need to remove that pressure on yourself. You'll learn along the way. You'll get better along the way. And then one day you'll look back and be like, oh my goodness, like, I can't even believe I was worried about that. You know, you're an expert now. Like, you've figured it all out and people are coming to you and asking you questions like, oh, how did you launch that podcast? I'm thinking about launching a podcast. Like, how did you get into it? And you'll very happily tell them, well, you just kind of do it. I sat down one day and recorded my first episode and sent it to some friends and asked them what they thought. And that is a magical thing. It's really, really fun when you can take theoretical stuff in your brain, like these electrical impulses in your brain, neurons firing, this electrical activity, and turn it into something in the real world that is largely tangible. Even digital products are tangible in a way because they can be shared and they can be experienced across the world. And there's no feeling like it. It's really cool. So you really don't need to know which one is the right door in this, going back to this room. You really don't need to know which one is the correct door to open first. You just need to pick one, open the door, learn, build some momentum and some confidence in yourself, and then just keep going. And it's going to get easier and easier and easier. That momentum will build. You'll get faster at this. And what's really cool is that on a meta level, you will train yourself to then the next time you're going to launch a big project or undergo some, goal of yours, you're going to have a playbook for how you do it. And you're going to realize like those early decisions are going to be fraught with risk and uncertainty and unknowns. So you just need to start making them because you're going to understand very quickly what's working, what's not, what are you actually looking for, what are you not looking for, and action is going to feed clarity. Action will give you the clarity to make even faster and more informed decisions. You can spend a lifetime in your head, or you can spend a couple of days doing things and learning more than you would have learned from thinking about it and from staying in that planning stage. My final little note here, planning is helpful. I don't want you to walk away thinking that you should never plan anything. Planning does have its place. That's why I think that sheet of paper is helpful, where you write between the left and the right side where you are and where you want to be. Give yourself a guide of where you're trying to go, but treat it like a guide. It's not going to be perfect. You're not going to have all the answers, but you roughly know where you want to go. And that's going to be really helpful to make those early decisions and feel confident that you're going to learn along the way and you're going to adapt. So, what's your next move? Hopefully, it is to follow the Forward Theory on Instagram, TikTok, on YouTube, if you're not already. And then once you've done that, it is to get out a sheet of paper, put that line down the middle, do that exercise, and start to make some decisions in your life to move things forward. You're going to feel really good about it, and it's going to get easier as you do it. That's it for this week. You've got your homework, and I will see you next Tuesday. Take care.